A young billionaire finds a hungry girl at the gates of his mansion. She looks at him and says, "Sorry, Dad, I'm late." What he discovers next changes his life forever. Rain hammered against the windows of the Hayes mansion as though trying to break in by force. Noah didn't mind. The sound of the storm even helped him focus on the numbers filling his computer screen. Spreadsheets, graphs, and financial projections, his entire world distilled into digits and percentages. It was nearly 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and the office on the mansion's first floor remained the only lit room. The staff had already retired to their quarters or gone home. Noah preferred it that way. Silence was his most reliable ally. A flash of lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the immaculate garden through the French windows. The thunder that followed made the house tremble slightly. "One more hour and I'll finish this," he murmured to himself, adjusting his reading glasses. Noah Hayes was the kind of man many would call successful. At 38 secs, he ran one of the biggest technology companies in the country. Money, power, respect. He had everything the world valued. Yet he lived alone in a mansion far too large for a single person, and his social calendar was basically a string of business meetings and corporate dinners. He was about to review the last report of the night when a knock on the front door interrupted him. The sound seemed frail against the roar of the storm, but still, it was audible. Noah frowned. It was 10 o'clock at night, in the middle of a storm. Who would knock on his door at this hour? He hesitated for a moment. The intercom hadn't rung, which meant someone had managed to get past the main gate unannounced. Maybe it was an emergency involving a staff member. The knock came again, more insistent this time. With an irritated sigh, Noah stood up and crossed the entrance hall. He wasn't expecting visitors and he hated surprises. He switched on the exterior light and opened the door, already preparing an expression of impatience. What he saw left him momentarily speechless. A girl of about 5 stood before him, soaked to the skin, her brown hair stuck to her face, and she clutched an equally drenched backpack to her chest. She was visibly shivering, looking up at him with large brown eyes that, despite her obvious exhaustion, shone with a strange determination. "Can I help you?" Noah asked, confused by the presence of this unaccompanied child. The girl swallowed hard, still trembling. Then she said something that made the ground shift beneath Noah's feet. "You're Noah Hayes, right?" "I'm Emily." She paused, as though gathering courage. "You're my dad." Noah felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. His first instinct was to slam the door and pretend this wasn't happening. A mistake. A prank. Maybe some kind of elaborate scam. "I think you're mistaken," he replied coolly, but he couldn't close the door. The girl, Emily, looked so fragile under the relentless rain. "Mom said you wouldn't know about me," she continued, her voice small but firm. "She said if something happened to her, I should come find you." Noah still held the doorknob, torn between suspicion and a strange feeling that he couldn't just ignore this situation. "Where's your mother?" he asked, trying to remain cautious. Emily lowered her eyes for the first time. "I don't know. We were together at the grocery store near the hotel, and then there were a lot of people, and I got separated from her. I waited, but she didn't come back. Mom always said that if we ever got separated and I couldn't find her, I should come here." Another clap of thunder shook the sky, making the girl shrink back. Noah looked past her, at the storm that seemed to grow worse by the minute. He couldn't just send her away, even if her story sounded made up. No child should be alone on a night like this. "How did you get here?" Noah asked, still not fully opening the door. "By taxi," Emily replied. "Mom taught me your address. She said I should memorize it, just in case." She reached into the pocket of her soaked jacket and pulled out some crumpled, wet bills. "I used the emergency money." Noah hesitated a moment longer. Part of him, the cold, rational part that had propelled him to the top of the corporate world, said this was some kind of trap, that he should call the police immediately, that he shouldn't get involved. But another part, one that rarely spoke up, couldn't leave this child shivering in the rain. "Come in," he finally said, opening the door wider. We'll figure this out. Emily took a small, hesitant step into the foyer, leaving a puddle on the marble floor. She looked even smaller beneath the bright chandelier. "What's your mom's full name?" Noah asked as he closed the door behind her. "Claire Donovan," Emily answered promptly. Noah frowned. The name meant absolutely nothing to him. He was certain he'd never been with anyone named Claire Donovan, or at least, he couldn't recall such a person. Emily sneezed, bringing Noah back to the present moment. Whatever the truth was, the girl needed dry clothes and something warm to eat. "Let's go upstairs," he said, his tone still distant. "You need to dry off before we both catch a cold." Emily nodded, following him up the wide staircase to the second floor. Her wet footprints left a trail on the carpet, and Noah tried not to think about what his housekeeper would say in the morning. The Hayes mansion had 5 guest suites, all impeccably maintained despite rarely being used. Noah led Emily to the smallest one, turned on the lights, and opened the built-in closet. "I don't have any kids' clothes, obviously," he said, pulling out a plain white t-shirt. "This will have to do as a nightgown for now. The bathroom is over there. Take a hot bath and dry off well." Emily took the t-shirt gingerly as though it was something precious. "Thank you," she mumbled, so quietly Noah almost didn't hear her. "I'll get you something to eat," he said, heading toward the door. "I'll be downstairs when you're finished." On his way back down, Noah took his phone out of his pocket and considered calling the police right away. A lost child was something the authorities should handle, not him. But something nagged at him. Claire Donovan. He tried again to match the name with a face, a memory. Nothing. Still, Emily's claim that he was her father demanded a firmer response than simply sending her away. If it were true, and he seriously doubted it, it would create unimaginable complications for his carefully controlled life. If it were false, he still had to figure out what was really going on. In the kitchen, he gathered some ingredients to make a sandwich and heat up instant soup. It wasn't much, but it would warm the girl up. While the water boiled, Noah found himself staring at the window, seeing only the reflection of his own tense face. 15 minutes later, Emily appeared at the kitchen door. The white t-shirt came down to her knees, and her still damp hair was darker than Noah had first noticed. She seemed less frightened now, but still vulnerable in a way that made him uneasy. "Take a seat." He indicated one of the high stools by the counter. Emily obeyed, climbing up with some difficulty. Her bare feet swung, unable to reach the footrest. Noah placed the sandwich and soup in front of her. "How did you know where to find me?" he asked while she started eating with obvious hunger. Between bites, Emily replied, "Mom always knew where you lived. She said it was important that I know in case I ever needed you." "And why would you need me?" Noah pressed, watching her closely. Emily shrugged, focusing on the food. "Because you're my dad. That's what Mom said." Noah took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Emily, I don't know your mother. I think there's some misunderstanding here." The girl looked up from her plate. "She said you'd say that." "And what else did she say?" Noah asked, crossing his arms. Emily took a spoonful of soup before answering. "That you wouldn't remember her. That it was a long time ago. But if she couldn't take care of me, you would, because deep down you're a good man." Noah felt strangely uneasy at that statement. A good man. It had been a while since anyone used those words to describe him. "I'll call the police in the morning," he said, keeping his voice neutral. "They'll know how to find your mother." Emily didn't protest. She just nodded slightly as she continued eating. She looked exhausted. "Where do you and your mum live?" Noah tried again. "We move a lot," Emily replied vaguely. "We were staying in a hotel near here this week. And before that, Seattle. And before that, Denver." Noah realized he wouldn't get anywhere with this interrogation. The girl was clearly too tired for a coherent conversation. "I'm done," she said, pushing away her empty plate. "Thank you for the food." Noah took the dishes to the sink. "Come on, I'll take you back to the guest room. We'll figure all this out tomorrow." On the way back, Noah noticed how Emily looked around with curiosity at the paintings on the walls, the sculptures in the niches, the sheer size of the rooms. It seemed she was memorizing every detail. "Here we are," he said, opening the door to the guest room. "Everything you need is in the bathroom. If you need anything during the night, my room is the last one at the end of the hallway on the right." Emily climbed onto the bed, which was far too big for her, and settled among the pillows. "Will Mom find me?" she asked, showing the first real sign of vulnerability Noah had seen since her arrival. "We'll find her," he responded, not promising too much. "Just rest now." He was about to leave when Emily's small voice stopped him. "She said you were a good man." Noah paused, not turning around. "But she said you forgot who you really were," Emily added, almost in a whisper. An inexplicable chill ran down Noah's spine. He turned to answer, but Emily was already settled among the pillows, eyes closed. He turned off the light, leaving only the bedside lamp on, and quietly closed the door. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall for a moment, suddenly breathless. Forgot who he really was. Those words lingered as he returned to his office. The rain still pounded mercilessly outside, but now there was something more unsettling than the storm. His absolute certainty that he'd never met anyone named Claire Donovan was beginning to fade, replaced by a restlessness he couldn't name. He sat down at his computer again, but financial reports no longer mattered. He opened a new browser window and typed in the name that wouldn't leave his mind, Claire Donovan. The search was just beginning, along with the strangest night of his life. Upstairs, asleep in the guest room, the little girl who claimed to be his daughter had brought far more than a soaked backpack. She'd brought questions for which Noah was no longer sure he wanted answers. 3 days had passed since Emily's arrival. Noah maintained a calculated distance, even after discovering that the hotel the girl mentioned did indeed exist, and that Claire Donovan had checked in there with a child, but vanished on the exact date Emily had described. The police had opened an investigation into the disappearance case, but so far, nothing concrete had surfaced. Emily remained at the Hayes mansion, growing more comfortable each day in a space that wasn't really hers. "We need to clear this up once and for all," Noah told his lawyer, Diane Wells, who was sitting across from him in his office. "I want a DNA test. As soon as possible." Diane adjusted her rectangular glasses, analyzing the situation with the cool detachment Noah so valued in her services. "I can arrange it for later today," she replied. "I know a lab that can prioritize the case. We'll have preliminary results in 48 hours. "Great." Noah tapped his fingers on the desk. "What about temporary custody? Technically, you're already exercising de facto custody. If the test confirms paternity, you'll have a legal right. If it doesn't..." Diane paused. "Then we'll find out who's really behind this and what they want," Noah said, making no effort to hide the hardness in his voice. When Diane left, Noah went upstairs to the room where Emily was. He found her sitting on the bed, drawing in a notepad the housekeeper had provided. "Emily," his voice made the girl look up from her drawing. "We need to do a test." "What kind of test?" She seemed genuinely curious, without a trace of worry. "A DNA test. Do you know what that is?" Emily nodded. "It's when they check if two people are in the same family, like father and daughter." She smiled slightly. "Mom explained that you might want that someday." The child's confidence irritated him. It was as though Claire Donovan had prepared Emily for every step of this meeting, for every reaction he might have. "So you don't mind?" Noah asked, watching her closely. "No." Emily went back to her drawing. "I know you're my dad." Noah felt his face heat up, a mix of frustration and a discomfort he couldn't name. Why was this girl so certain? Why did he feel so cornered? 2 hours later, a nurse from the lab Diane had recommended arrived at the mansion. The procedure was quick, a saliva sample from both Noah and Emily. The girl showed no hint of nerves, while Noah couldn't hide his agitation. "How long until we have the results?" he asked the nurse. "We're prioritizing your case, Mr. Hayes. 48 hours, at most." Those 48 hours were the longest Noah could remember. He tried to focus on work, But his mind always drifted back to the girl now sleeping under his roof, to the name that wouldn't leave his thoughts, Claire Donovan, and to the inexplicable feeling that he was losing control of his own story. Emily, on the other hand, seemed increasingly at ease. On the morning of the second day, Noah found her in the kitchen, helping the housekeeper make pancakes. "Good morning," she said naturally, as if she'd been living in his house for years. "Want blueberry pancakes? They're the best." Noah declined, just grabbing his cup of coffee. He watched Emily's poise, how she had already found her place in a house that had never really been a home, even for him. That afternoon, the phone call Noah had both hoped for and dreaded finally came. "Mr. Hayes," the lab doctor's voice sounded formal on the other end of the line. "We have the preliminary results of the paternity test." Noah's mouth went dry. "And the probability of paternity is greater than 99.9%. There's no doubt. The girl is your biological daughter." The world seemed to slow around Noah. The words echoed in his mind, but they didn't fully register. His biological daughter, a 99.9% certainty. How was that possible? How could he have a 5-year-old daughter and not remember her mother? "Mr. Hayes, are you there?" The doctor's voice snapped him back. "Yes, thank you for the result. Send the full report to my email." Noah hung up and remained motionless for several minutes, staring at the office wall without really seeing it. Then, slowly, he walked to the living rooms, where Emily was watching a cartoon. She immediately sensed his presence, and something in his expression must have betrayed his state of shock. "They called, didn't they?" she asked simply. Noah nodded, still at a loss for words. Emily smiled, not triumphantly, but with relief. "I knew it." "How?" The question slipped out almost as an accusation. "How did you know? If I didn't even know? How can I have a daughter and not remember?" Emily's expression changed, surprisingly mature for a 5-year-old. "Mom said you wouldn't remember. She said it was complicated." "Complicated?" Noah almost laughed, an empty sound. "Having a daughter and forgetting about her is more than complicated, Emily. It's impossible." Emily turned off the TV, now focusing all her attention on Noah. "Mum doesn't like to talk about the past, but she showed me pictures of you. She told me stories. She said maybe one day you'd remember, maybe not." Noah approached, sitting next to her on the couch. "What stories? What else did she tell you?" "That you met when she worked at a coffee shop near your office, that you used to laugh more back then." Emily spoke as if reciting something memorized, but with genuine emotion. "She said something happened that separated you, and after that you forgot about her. But when she found out she was pregnant with me, it was too late to tell you." Noah tried to force his memory. A coffee shop? Claire working as a waitress? None of it triggered any recollection. "I don't..." He paused, not knowing how to explain the unexplainable to a child. "I really don't remember, Emily." The girl surprised him by placing her small hand on his. "That's okay. Mum said it wasn't your fault." The statement hit him like a punch. Not his fault. Exactly what had Claire told Emily? And why now, after 5 years, had she sent the girl to him? "When we find your mum, I'll have a lot of questions for her," Noah said, more to himself than to Emily. "She'll answer," Emily stated, with that unshakable confidence that unsettled him. "Mum always said the truth was important, even when it hurts." Noah stood up, needing space to process everything. In 3 days, his orderly, predictable life had turned into an enigma he couldn't solve. And the most unsettling part, the test confirmed Emily was indeed his daughter, meaning there was an entire chapter of his life he didn't remember. "Can I call you Dad now?" Emily's question caught him off guard. Noah looked at her, this confident child who shared his genes, who had his eyes, and who, in some inexplicable way, was part of him. "Let's take it slow," he replied, his voice gentler than he intended. "We have a lot to figure out first." But the truth revealed by the DNA test was inescapable. Scientifically, biologically, Noah Hayes was a father. What he couldn't understand was how he'd become one, and worse, how he'd forgotten. The paternity test result changed everything. In less than 24 hours, Noah turned his search for answers into a large-scale operation. The Hayes mansion, usually silent, now buzzed with security personnel, private investigators, and lawyers. "I want all the security camera footage from the grocery store where Emily says she got separated from her mother," Noah told Marcus Brent, the head of security he'd hired years ago for delicate corporate matters, and from the adjacent streets, nearby stores and everything. Marcus, an ex-military man of few words, nodded. "We've already requested them. We're reconstructing her movements in the 48 hours before she disappeared." Across the makeshift conference table in Noah's office, Diane Wells was flipping through documents. "What's strange is that I can't find many records for Claire Donovan," she commented, frowning. "No significant bank accounts, few lease agreements, always temporary. It's like she was hiding." Noah felt a twinge at the back of his neck. "Hiding from whom? Or from what?" Marcus added. "Some people prefer living off the radar, sometimes because of debts, legal troubles, or—" He hesitated. "Or," Noah pressed him, "or because they're afraid of someone." The silence that followed was loaded with unsettling possibilities. Noah couldn't stop thinking. If Claire was running from something or someone, why had she sent Emily specifically to him? A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Sarah, the housekeeper, peeked inside. "Mr. Hayes, Emily is asking if she can have lunch. It's almost 2 o'clock. Noah glanced at the clock, surprised. He'd lost track of time completely. "Take a break," he told the group. "We'll resume in an hour." As he walked up the stairs toward the kitchen, Noah realized this was his new reality. He could no longer bury himself in work and meetings without considering another person, a 5-year-old child, his daughter, who depended on him for the most basic needs. He found Emily sitting on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs far from the floor, while Sarah helped her color a book. "Look, I made a green dinosaur," Emily exclaimed when she saw him, holding up the book proudly. "Very nice," Noah replied, surprised by the kindness in his own voice. "Sorry I kept you waiting." Emily shrugged and went back to coloring. "Sarah helped me. She doesn't color outside the lines." The housekeeper smiled discreetly while preparing sandwiches. Noah noticed how Emily had already built a comfortable relationship with her. In just a few days, the girl was beginning to put down roots here, while Claire remained a mystery. "Can we eat outside?" Emily suddenly asked, pointing to the window. "It's sunny." Noah hesitated. He usually ate lunch in his office, when he remembered to eat at all. The garden was just scenery he saw through the windows. "Why not?" he answered, surprising even himself. Minutes later, they sat at a table on the back patio, under the shade of an old oak tree. The air was fresh and clean after the previous week's storm, as though nature also wanted a fresh start. Emily perched on 2 cushions to reach the table, her legs dangling as she ate. "Emily," Noah began, as she took bites of her sandwich cut into triangles, just as Sarah had learned she preferred. "Can you tell me more about you and your mom? Where did you live?" Emily chewed, leaving crumbs on the plate. "We've lived in a lot of houses. Sometimes in hotels, too." "You moved a lot." Noah tried to keep the question simple. Emily nodded energetically. "A lot. Mom says we're explorers." "Do you know why you move so often?" The little girl shrugged with the simplicity of her 5 years. "Mom says it's because of work, but she always looks back when we leave. Like she forgot something." Noah exchanged a glance with Marcus, who hovered discreetly near the patio door. The security chief gave a slight nod, indicating he was mentally recording the information. "What does your mom do? What kind of work?" Noah continued, keeping his voice light. "She talks to people on the computer," Emily said, taking a big bite of her sandwich. "Sometimes she uses funny words I don't understand." "Other languages?" Emily nodded, her mouth full. "She can speak a bunch of languages. Sometimes she teaches me magic words." "Do you go to school?" Noah asked, curious about how a 5-year-old living on the movie got her education. Not yet. Mom teaches me letters and numbers. Emily looked proud. I can count to 100. Want me to show you? Maybe later. Noah gave a small smile. Did your mom ever say where she'd go if you got separated? Emily shook her head, making her hair bounce. No. She just said if we ever got separated, I should come to your house, that you'd take care of me. Did she talk about me before? Tell you stories? Yes. Emily brightened, her eyes shining. She said you drink a lot of coffee. Black coffee. Yuck. She made a face that, surprisingly, brought a small smile to Noah's lips. Double Americano. No sugar, he murmured. That's it. Emily clapped her hands, delighted he knew. How did you guess? Noah froze. That specific detail, his preference for coffee, triggered a strange déjà vu. He did always order a double Americano with no sugar. It was a habit of many years. It's just what I always order, he answered cautiously. What else did she say about me? That you used to play music. Emily lifted her hands, imitating someone at a piano. A pretty song with moon in the name. Claire de Lune, Noah murmured, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Yes, Emily's eyes widened. How did you know? Noah had no explanation. It wasn't a specific memory of Claire, but it was indeed his favorite piece to play years ago. The name Claire and Claire de Lune, could that be a coincidence? The rest of lunch passed with Emily sharing more fragments of her life with her mother, interspersed with questions about the animals she saw in the garden and whether Noah had toys in the house. She bounced from topic to topic like a typical 5-year-old. Every detail only deepened the mystery but also evoked a strange effect on Noah. The name Claire Donovan was beginning to provoke an almost physical sensation in him, not a concrete memory, but a familiarity he couldn't quite place, like a word on the tip of his tongue that refused to be spoken. After lunch, Noah had to return to his professional obligations. An important video conference couldn't be postponed, even though his personal life was in utter chaos. Emily, I need to work for a few hours, he explained, choosing words a 5-year-old would understand. Why? The question came immediately, with the direct curiosity typical of her age. Because it's my job. I have an important meeting. Emily frowned, clearly unsatisfied with his answer. But I wanted to show you my other drawings. Noah found himself in unfamiliar territory. In his world, work always came first. He wasn't used to anyone questioning his priorities, least of all someone who barely reached his waist. How about we look at your drawings after dinner? He offered, surprised by his own flexibility. Emily considered for a moment. Can we have pasta? Pasta? With tomato sauce. It's my favorite. Sure, Noah agreed, once again surprising himself. Pasta with tomato sauce. The afternoon dragged on with meetings and emails. Between tasks, Noah checked in with Marcus to see if there were any updates on Claire. The hours passed without any significant breakthroughs. We found footage of her on the grocery store cameras, Marcus reported at the end of the day. She entered with Emily at 3:47 p.m. and that afternoon. By 4:22 p.m. the cameras show Claire looking agitated, searching for someone, presumably Emily, who's no longer with her. Then what? Noah asked, tense. She leaves the store, apparently looking for her daughter outside. Then, Marcus hesitated. What? She looks at something off camera. Her expression changes completely. Pure fear. And she just runs the other way. A chill ran through Noah. She saw someone. Seems like it. We're trying to access other cameras to identify what or who she saw. Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call. It was Diane. You need to see this, she said bluntly. Minutes later, she entered the office carrying a folder. We finally have something concrete about Claire Donovan, or rather, about Claire Dawson, Bradford, Taylor, Reynolds, and half a dozen other last names she's used over the past 6 years. Diane spread documents across the desk, copies of IDs, driver's licenses, each with a photo of the same woman but different names. She changes her identity approximately every 8 or 10 months. We managed to trace some of these changes. Noah examined the photos, trying to find something familiar in the woman's face. Claire was attractive in a discreet way. Brown hair, delicate features, intelligent eyes. But as hard as he tried, he couldn't associate her with any specific memory. "Why would she do this?" he murmured. "That's the million-dollar question," Diane replied. "People who live like this are usually running from something serious, massive debts, criminal charges, or someone dangerous," Noah finished. "Exactly. And here's the strangest part. Before she started this life of constant moves and fake identities, Claire Donovan, her real name, from what we can verify, was a university linguistics professor. She published articles, had a promising career. Then, about 6 years ago, she just vanished from academia." 6 years, Noah repeated. "Emily is 5. A heavy silence filled the room as everyone processed the timing. Whatever had made Claire disappear happened shortly before Emily was conceived. Noah felt a headache coming on. He needed air. He needed time to think. "Keep looking," he ordered. "I want everything on Claire Donovan, especially what happened 6 years ago." Leaving the office, Noah found himself wandering the mansion's halls without a specific destination. Somehow, his steps led him to the old music room, a space he rarely visited anymore. The grand piano stood there, covered in a thin layer of dust. On a whim, Noah removed the cover and sat down on the bench. His hands hovered over the keys, hesitant. He was so absorbed that he didn't notice Emily standing at the door until she spoke. "That's a giant piano." Noah almost stood up, embarrassed at being caught in a vulnerable moment, but something kept him seated. "Yes, it's a grand piano," he explained. Emily came into the room, her eyes wide with wonder. She looked tiny next to the massive instrument. "Are you going to play?" she asked, stepping closer as though the piano might get scared and run away. "I'm not sure. It's been a long time." "Mum said you play beautiful music." Emily ran a tiny finger across the keys, producing a random series of notes. "Will you play?" There it was again, Claire knowing things about him she shouldn't have known unless they had truly shared a past. "Would you like me to try?" Noah surprised himself with the offer. Emily nodded eagerly, nearly bouncing with excitement. Noah helped her climb onto the bench beside him, where she could barely see above the keyboard. He played the first notes of Claire de Lune with hesitation. His fingers were stiff, out of practice, but gradually muscle memory kicked in. The notes flowed, shaky at first, then more confidently as he continued. Emily watched, utterly fascinated, her mouth slightly open. "Wow, it sounds like fairy music." Noah kept playing, letting the music fill him. With each note, he felt something stir inside. Not exactly a memory, but an old, buried emotion trying to surface. When he finished, the silence that followed felt almost sacred. "Again," Emily requested, clapping her hands. Noah smiled slightly. "Maybe later. How about that pasta I promised?" "With tomato sauce," Emily reminded him, sliding off the bench with his help. "And cheese on top." That night, for the first time in years, Noah didn't eat alone in his office. Instead, he sat in the kitchen with Emily, who insisted on helping Sarah cook dinner, which basically meant standing on a stool and stirring the sauce while heavily supervised. The girl chattered non-stop, telling stories about an imaginary friend named Mr. Buttons and asking every 2 minutes if the pasta was ready. It was a simple, domestic scene, one that had never belonged in his orderly and solitary life. And, surprisingly, Noah found himself less uncomfortable than he'd imagined. During dinner, Emily suddenly went quiet, for the first time that Noah had seen her without that bubbling energy. "You are going to find Mom, aren't you?" The question carried both hope and fear. Noah realized that despite all her apparent adaptability, Emily was still just a frightened 5-year-old child, separated from the only constant in her life. "I'll do everything I can," he answered honestly. "I promise." Emily studied his face for a moment with surprising intensity for someone so young. Then, to Noah's complete surprise, she held out her pinky finger. "Pinky promise?" she asked seriously. Noah hesitated before hooking his own pinky with hers. "Pinky promise?" Emily seemed satisfied with that and returned to her pasta with renewed interest. Later, after putting Emily to bed, a process that included 3 bedtime stories, checking under the bed and in the closet for monsters, plugging in a nightlight, and promising to leave the door slightly open, Noah returned to his office. The reports on Claire Donovan, or whatever her real name was, were still scattered across his desk. Photos, documents, fragments of a life inexplicably tied to his. Noah picked up one of the photos, studying the woman's face. Claire. The name echoed in his mind, sparking that same strange sensation, familiarity without a specific recollection, like a dream evaporating upon waking. "Where are you?" he murmured at the photograph. "And what happened between us?" The mansion was quiet around him. Somewhere above, his daughter, it was still strange to think of her that way, slept soundly, clutching a teddy bear Sarah had found in a closet. And somewhere out there, the woman who knew his secrets, his preferences, his music, was still missing. Noah placed the photo back on the desk and leaned against his chair. Tomorrow he would resume the search. Tomorrow, maybe he'd be one step closer to understanding how he'd lost not just a woman, but also 5 years of his own daughter's life. And maybe a part of himself too. 2 weeks had passed since Emily's arrival, and Claire's absence was becoming a heavy presence in the Hayes mansion. The search continued, but yielded no concrete results. Noah had expanded the team of investigators and offered a substantial reward for any information, yet Claire Donovan seemed to have vanished. Emily, meanwhile, was adapting surprisingly well to her new routine. Noah had hired a tutor to guide her education, since the girl was used to being homeschooled. Gradually, a new normal was emerging, but the unanswered questions still tormented Noah. If Claire had sent Emily to him, why hadn't she shown up? And more importantly, how could he be the father of a 5-year-old and not remember the child's mother? Sitting in his office, Noah stared at his computer screen, which displayed a file he'd been avoiding for days. Diane had managed to secure access to his own medical records, something he'd never bothered to look at before. "Mr. Hayes." Noah looked up. Sarah stood at the door, hesitant. "Emily's already asleep," the housekeeper said. "She asked me to let you know she wants pancakes for breakfast tomorrow." Noah nodded. "Thanks, Sarah. You can head to bed now." Left alone again, he took a deep breath and returned his attention to the file on the screen. The medical report dated back 6 years. He scanned the pages until he found the main diagnosis: severe traumatic brain injury resulting from a car accident. The accident. Noah vaguely remembered it. His car had veered off the road one rainy night, colliding with a tree. He recalled being hospitalized for a few weeks, but had always considered the incident just a bump in his busy life, something he overcame without major consequences. He kept reading, each paragraph revealing details missing from his memory. Patient presents partial retrograde amnesia, primarily affecting memories from the 14 months prior to the accident. Cognitive function otherwise preserved. Noah felt a cold chill run down his spine. Amnesia. No one had ever mentioned that to him. Or had they, and he'd simply forgotten. His eyes darted to the accident date. Doing a quick calculation, he realized it matched roughly 6 months before Emily's likely conception. The 14 months of lost memories could easily include his entire relationship with Claire. With trembling fingers, he read on, looking for more information. Patient was discharged after 3 weeks of hospitalization with a recommendation for neuropsychological follow-up to treat amnesia. Prognosis for memory recovery. Uncertain. Another passage caught his eye. During hospitalization, the patient was visited daily by family members. No other visitors were allowed, at the request of the Hayes family. Noah closed his eyes, struggling to process this new revelation. Not only had he suffered an accident that erased more than a year of his memories, but his family had also apparently controlled who could and could not visit him during recovery. Claire might have tried to see him. Had she been turned away by his family? He realized he was holding his breath and exhaled slowly. He needed more answers. He grabbed his phone and called Diane, despite the late hour. "I need you to find my neurologist from back then," he said as soon as she answered. "Dr. Morales. I want an appointment as soon as possible." 2 nights later, Noah woke with a start. Another dream. The third one since he'd learned about his amnesia. It was always the same scenario. Him in a hospital bed, unable to move, while a female figure held his hand. He could feel the warmth of her fingers intertwined with his, hear muffled sobs, but when he tried to focus on her face, it stayed blurry, like looking through frosted glass. He got up, knowing he wouldn't get back to sleep. The clock read 3:17 a.m. He put on a robe and headed downstairs to get a glass of water. Passing the hallway, he noticed a faint light coming from Emily's room. He approached carefully and pushed the door open a crack. The girl was sitting up in bed, hugging a teddy bear under the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Her eyes were red and wet. "Emily?" Noah stepped inside. "What's wrong?" "I had a bad dream," she answered, her voice small. "Mom was calling me, but I couldn't find her." Noah sat on the edge of the bed, awkwardly. He still didn't know exactly how to comfort a child. "It was just a dream," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "You're safe now." Emily nodded, but she kept hugging the teddy. "When are we going to find Mom?" That question, so direct and full of longing, hit Noah like a stone. What could he say? That despite all his resources, he hadn't found any trace of Claire, that he was beginning to fear the worst. "We're doing everything we can," he replied, avoiding a promise he couldn't guarantee. Emily studied him with those big eyes that seemed to see beyond his words. "Mom says when you're scared, you have to be braver than the fear." Noah gave a slight smile. "Your mom sounds very wise." "She is," Emily said, brightening a bit. "And strong, too. Once our car broke down on the highway and she fixed it all by herself." "She fixed a car?" Noah asked, surprised. "Yeah, she opened the front part and messed around with a bunch of things. It took a while, but then it worked." Emily looked proud. "Mom can do a lot of things." Noah fell silent, absorbing this new information. Every detail Emily shared about Claire painted a more complete picture of the mysterious woman who had entered and disappeared from his life without leaving any imprint on his memory. "Do you want me to stay until you fall asleep again?" he offered. Emily nodded, settling back among the pillows. Noah stayed by her side, awkward yet present. Within a few minutes, the girl's breathing became deep and steady. Even after Emily drifted off, Noah remained there for a while, watching her. How could he have missed the first 5 years of his daughter's life? How could he have completely forgotten her mother? And what if he never got those memories back? What if he never remembered Claire? The next morning, Noah sat in a discreet waiting room in a medical building downtown. He'd managed to get an appointment with his old neurologist, Dr. Morales, a middle-aged man with an academic air. "Mr. Hayes," the doctor greeted him, leading him into the consultation room. "I was surprised you reached out. It's been 6 years since we last met." Noah took the seat indicated. "Doctor, I recently found out I have a 5-year-old daughter." Dr. Morales raised his eyebrows, but his face stayed professional. "I see. And this relates to your accident." "Apparently so. Her mother, Claire Donovan, I don't remember her at all. But everything suggests we had a relationship during the period I can't recall because of the amnesia." The doctor nodded, checking a folder on his desk. "Your retrograde amnesia affected about 14 months prior to the accident. It's entirely possible you had a significant relationship in that period. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Noah couldn't keep the frustration out of his voice. "Why wasn't I informed I'd lost over a year of my life?" Dr. Morales adjusted his glasses, choosing his words carefully. Mr. Hayes, I informed your family about your condition. It was your father who decided how to handle the situation. He insisted that added stress would jeopardize your recovery. My father, Noah repeated with bitterness. Of course it was him. Gerald Hayes, the controlling patriarch, never approved of any of Noah's relationships. You did come to see me a few times after your discharge, the doctor continued. But after a few appointments, you decided to stop treatment. You said you felt fine and preferred to move on. Noah frowned. He had no memory of making that decision. That's common in amnesia cases, Dr. Morales explained, noting Noah's confusion. Some patients prefer not to explore lost memories, especially if they can resume their lives without major hindrances. You had your company, your routine. Now I have a daughter, Noah finished, and I don't remember her mother. The doctor nodded. Has anything changed recently? Are you having flashbacks or recurrent dreams? Noah hesitated. Dreams. A woman in the hospital holding my hand. I can't see her face. That's a good sign, Dr. Morales said. It means the memories are there, just inaccessible. We can try some therapeutic approaches to help you recover them. Like what? Cognitive behavioral therapy, clinical hypnosis, visualization techniques, the doctor listed. But I must warn you, recovering traumatic or emotionally charged memories can be a difficult process. It's worth a try, Noah decided. He needed the truth, for Emily's sake and his own. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah split his time between his company, Emily, and therapy sessions. 3 times a week, he met with Dr. Leanne Chen, a neuropsychologist specializing in memory recovery, recommended by Dr. Morales. The sessions were intense and often frustrating. Visualization exercises, deep relaxation techniques, even clinical hypnosis, all in an attempt to access those lost 14 months. The brain protects itself, Dr. Chen explained, during a particularly difficult session. When it suffers trauma, like your accident, it may block memories from the prior period as a defense mechanism. But it's been 6 years, Noah argued. Time isn't always the main factor. Without the right stimuli, some memories can remain blocked indefinitely. In one session, Dr. Chen asked Noah to bring music he used to listen to around the time of the accident. He chose Debussy, including Clair de Lune, the piece he inexplicably associated with Claire. Lying on a comfortable couch in the silent office, Noah closed his eyes as the delicate notes filled the space. Dr. Chen guided him through a relaxation exercise, asking him to visualize a hallway with multiple doors. Each door could contain a memory, she said softly. Just observe them. Don't force anything. Noah imagined the hallway, feeling deeply relaxed. The doors appeared in his mind, all closed. He walked mentally down the corridor until one door caught his attention. It was light blue, with a small crack in the middle. He approached. As soon as he touched the handle, the background music seemed to grow louder. He turned the handle, and the door opened. A coffee shop. The smell of freshly ground beans. He was sitting at a table near the window, working on his laptop. A female voice asking if he wanted more coffee. He looked up and saw... The image vanished before he could see her face. Noah opened his eyes, frustrated. You were in a coffee shop, he told Dr. Chen. Someone offered me coffee, but I couldn't see who it was. That's progress, she encouraged him. The images will come more clearly over time. Don't force them. That night, the dream returned, more vivid than ever. Noah in the hospital, the woman holding his hand. This time, he could hear disjointed words. Please, let me see him. I love him. He needs to know. Then a male voice, familiar and commanding. My son needs to recover without distractions. I'm asking you not to return. Noah woke in a panic, his head throbbing. The male voice was unmistakable. His father, Gerald Hayes, had driven someone away, someone who'd wanted to see him in the hospital. Claire. His heart pounded as he tried to hold onto the fragments of the dream before they dissipated. He got up feeling dizzy and walked to the window. Outside, the night was clear, dotted with stars, the same view he'd had 6 years ago, yet everything was so different now. A shrill scream tore through his thoughts. "Mom!" Noah rushed down the hall to Emily's room. He found her sitting up in bed, tears streaking her cheeks, still trapped in the nightmare. "Emily," he called softly, sitting next to her. "It's me. You're safe." The girl looked at him, blinking in confusion for a moment before recognizing him. Then, without warning, she threw herself into his arms, sobbing. "I dreamed Mom was scared," she hiccuped between tears. "She was running and calling my name, but I couldn't reach her." Noah held her awkwardly, feeling her small body tremble against him. "It was just a dream," he murmured, though he feared it might be more than that. If Claire really was running from something or someone. "I want my mom," Emily sobbed, her voice muffled against Noah's shoulder. "I know," he replied, feeling a crushing sense of helplessness. What could he say? How could he comfort a child whose pain mirrored his own inability to recover his past and find answers? "I'll find her," he promised, though it was a promise he wasn't sure he could keep. "We'll find her together." But as he rocked Emily back to sleep, Noah felt the weight of his own inadequacy. He didn't know how to be a father. He didn't know how to comfort a frightened child. He had no memories to guide him, no experience to draw upon. All he had were fragments, loose pieces of a puzzle whose final picture he couldn't imagine. A woman crying in a hospital, his father barring someone from seeing him. A DNA test confirming Emily was his daughter. Medical reports detailing 14 missing months of his life. Somewhere in that void of memory was Claire Donovan, the woman who knew the music he played, who had single-handedly raised their daughter for 5 years, who for some reason had needed to send Emily to him now. Still sitting on Emily's bed, watching the sleeping face so much like his own, Noah made a silent vow. He would find Claire. He would recover his memories. He would learn the truth no matter how painful it might be. Because for the first time in his adult life, something mattered more than work, success, or the Hayes family's expectations. That little girl, asleep with tears still drying on her cheeks, she deserved answers. And if that meant facing the blank space in his own memory, then that was exactly what he would do. Noah woke to the sound of laughter coming from downstairs. For a moment, he was disoriented. The Hayes mansion rarely heard laughter, especially not so early. Then he remembered Emily. Over the last 3 weeks, his routine had changed more than in the previous 10 years. Now he woke up earlier, had breakfast in the kitchen instead of his office, and knew all the names of the characters on his daughter's favorite cartoon. His daughter. It was still odd to phrase it that way, but each day made it feel less surreal. He dressed quickly and went downstairs. In the kitchen, he found Emily perched on the counter, helping Sarah prepare what appeared to be pancake batter. The girl had flour on her nose and smiled as she stirred the mixture. "Dad!" she exclaimed upon seeing him, without letting go of the spoon. "We're making pancakes with faces." Noah noted she'd started calling him Dad a few days earlier, naturally, without him asking or suggesting it. The first time, it had caught him off guard, causing a strange lump in his throat. "Good morning," he said, pouring himself some coffee. "Faces. Sarah said we can use blueberries for eyes and bananas for smiles," Emily explained excitedly, "like in the book we read yesterday." The book in question was part of a growing collection now occupying an entire shelf in his office. Bedtime stories had become a mandatory ritual before lights out. "Mr. Hayes," Sarah said while pouring the first pancake on the griddle. "Mr. Brent called. He said he'll be here in an hour for the meeting." Noah nodded. Marcus was leading the search for Claire, now with a larger team of investigators and private detectives. They'd arranged a meeting to discuss updates. "Emily, do you mind staying with Mrs. Patel this morning?" he asked, referring to the tutor he'd hired. "I have an important meeting." "About Mom?" Emily asked directly, her large eyes fixed on him. Noah hesitated only for a moment. He had decided not to hide the truth from her, at least not entirely. "Yes, about your mom." Emily nodded, suddenly serious. I'm going to make a drawing for her while you talk. For when we find her. The child's unwavering optimism sometimes left Noah speechless. After almost a month of intensive searching, he was starting to fear the worst, but Emily was certain they would find Claire. That's a great idea, he replied, sitting down to share breakfast with his daughter. An hour later, Noah was in his office with Marcus Brent and 2 private detectives hired for the case. Diane Wells was also there, taking notes. We managed to trace Claire Donovan's movements over the last 18 months, Marcus began, spreading photos and documents across the desk. We identified at least 6 different identities in that time. Why so many changes? Noah asked, examining photos of Claire in various cities. This is where it gets interesting, said Jeff Lowry, a former police officer now working as a private investigator. We spoke with neighbors, temporary co-workers, landlords at the places she rented. They all say the same thing. She always seemed to be looking over her shoulder. Like she was running from someone, added the second detective, Anna Ramirez. A woman in Boston, where Claire lived for 4 months as Claire Taylor, said she checked the locks twice and never accepted deliveries without looking through the peephole. Jeff went on. In Denver, a neighbor said she moved out in the middle of the night after seeing an unfamiliar car parked on the street for 2 days in a row. A knot formed in Noah's stomach. The picture emerging was disturbing. Claire living in constant fear, always watchful, always ready to flee. And Emily in the middle of all that, he muttered. Yes, and that's noteworthy, Anna said. Despite all the moves, from what we learned, Claire never neglected her daughter. Private tutors, libraries, museums. She made sure Emily had some kind of proper education. Marcus took the lead again. The first big question is, who or what was she running from? And the second, why send Emily to you now? Noah had no answers to those questions. Over the past few weeks, his therapy sessions had produced only fragments of memory. A coffee shop, a laugh, the touch of a hand. Nothing substantial enough to solve the mystery of Claire Donovan. There's more, Jeff said, hesitating. We found someone who had regular contact with Claire, a woman named Teresa Vega in Portland. She was Claire's neighbor for about 3 months a year ago. And, Noah prompted him, Teresa said Claire mentioned being pursued by someone powerful, someone who could buy anyone. Jeff paused. She also said Claire feared they might hurt her daughter. Noah felt a chill course through him. That explains why she sent Emily to me. If she believed I could protect her if something happened. But it doesn't explain why she hasn't shown up, Diane pointed out, or why she waited 5 years to do so. A heavy silence fell over the room. The possibility that Claire was in real danger was becoming more and more likely. We need to intensify the search, Noah decided, standing up. Double the team. Increase the reward. I want reinforced security at the mansion for Emily. Marcus nodded. I've already initiated advanced security protocols. No one comes in or out without thorough checks. There's one last thing, Anna said, pulling an envelope from her briefcase. We found this in Seattle. Claire worked at a bookstore for a few weeks about 2 months ago under the name Claire Reynolds. The owner kept this when Claire left abruptly. Anna slid a photograph across the desk. Noah picked it up, feeling his heart rate spike. The photo showed a young woman, Claire, sitting on a park bench. Next to her was a small girl, unmistakably Emily, about 3 years old. They smiled at the camera. On the back, a date from 2 years prior and a single handwritten word. Remember, remember, Noah repeated, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. The photograph seemed to be trying to tell him something, to awaken some buried memory. There's more, Anna continued. The bookstore owner mentioned that Claire regularly visited a particular cafe, Blue Note, almost every day. A cafe? Noah frowned, the mention sparking something in his mind. Yes, and here's the interesting part. The Blue Note was less than a mile from here. It's been closed for about 2 years, but at the time I used to go there, Noah finished, realization washing over him. double Americano, no sugar. Everyone in the room stared at him, puzzled. Mr. Hayes, Marcus looked confused. Emily told me her mother said they met in a coffee shop where she worked, that I always ordered the same coffee. Noah looked at the photo in his hands, forcing his mind to recall. The blue note was on my route between my old apartment and the office. I went there almost every morning. So we have a solid connection, Diane concluded. You and Claire really did know each other. This isn't just a made-up story. Noah nodded slowly, still staring at the picture. Something about Claire's smile, the way she tilted her head, stirred a feeling of familiarity, but the full memory remained just out of reach, like a dream upon waking. I guess we have a clearer direction now, Jeff said. We'll track all of Claire's movements in Seattle during that period. If she revisited the Blue Note, she might have other connections there. The meeting lasted another hour, setting new parameters for the search. When everyone left, Noah remained in his office, still holding the photograph. Remember. What did Claire want him to remember? A gentle knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Emily walked in, carrying a colorful drawing. I'm done, she announced proudly, handing him the paper. Noah took it. It showed 3 stick figures, a small one with brown hair, a taller one seemingly in a suit, and a third with long brown hair. Above them was a bright yellow sun and a big red heart surrounding them all. It's our family, Emily explained. You, me, and Mom. When we're all together again. Noah felt an unexpected surge of emotion. It's very beautiful, he managed to say. Can I put it on the fridge? Emily asked, already grabbing it back. Sarah says that's where families put important drawings. Of course, Noah replied, watching as she skipped out of his office excitedly. Family. The word had never meant much to Noah. Growing up, family meant stifling expectations and conditional approval. His father, Gerald Hayes, had built a corporate empire and expected Noah to follow that path exactly as planned. His mother, always in her husband's shadow, rarely intervened. The Hayes family meant success, not affection, but now a 5-year-old girl was redefining that concept for him. The rest of the day passed with Noah balancing work and the new rituals he'd established with Emily. Lunch together, a walk in the garden mid-afternoon, helping her with the educational exercises from her tutor. That night, after dinner, came Emily's favorite part of the day, story time. Noah settled into the armchair beside her bed, a children's book in his hands. This one's about a bear who loses his family and finds them again, Emily said, snuggling into the pillows with her teddy bear. Noah began to read, noticing how Emily's eyes lit up at each twist in the story. When they finished, she caught him off guard with a question. You know you've changed, right? Noah blinked in confusion. What do you mean? When I got here, you didn't smile much, now you smile more, Emily stated with the straightforward honesty of a child. Sarah and Diane noticed too. I heard them talking. Noah didn't know how to reply. Was it true? Had he changed? And you got mad at that man on the phone today, Emily continued. I've never heard you raise your voice before. The call she was referring to had been with one of his company's executives, who questioned his frequent absences over the last few weeks. Noah had indeed lost his temper, unusual for his typical cool control. Sometimes people need to speak loudly to be heard, he said awkwardly. Emily nodded with a wisdom beyond her years. Mom says sometimes we have to roar like lions even when we feel as small as mice. Yet another of Claire's countless pearls of wisdom. Each mention of her formed an ever more complex and intriguing image of the woman in Noah's mind. Time for bed, he said, tucking the blankets around her. Will you find Mom tomorrow? Emily asked, as she did every night. We're doing everything we can, he replied as always, but this time he added, and we have new leads. Good ones. Emily's drowsy smile was enough reward for that small offering of hope. After Emily fell asleep, Noah went down to his office. The mansion was quiet, with only a few security guards discreetly patrolling the grounds. Security had been significantly tightened since they discovered Claire might be on the run from a real threat. He was reviewing the day's reports when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcus Brent's number. "Hayes," he answered. "Sir, we've got something." Marcus sounded tense but excited. Anna followed a lead in Portland. Her woman matching Claire's description was spotted in a small coastal town about 2 hours from here. Noah felt his heart race. When? Yesterday. She's using the name Claire Wilson now. Rented a room in a guest house. Paid cash. Seems to be alone. Are you sure it's her? The description matches, and Anna is on her way to confirm. If it's really Claire, we can be there in less than 3 hours. Noah checked the time. 10:17 p.m. Arrange everything. I want to leave at dawn. What about Emily? Noah hesitated. Taking the girl might be risky, especially if Claire was truly in danger. But if it turned out to be a false alarm, Emily would be devastated if she hadn't come along. She's coming with us, he decided finally. If it's really Claire, Emily should be there. After hanging up, Noah remained motionless for a few minutes, trying to process what might happen the next day. After weeks of searching, they might finally find Claire. Then what? What would he say to the woman he had known and loved, yet couldn't remember? How would he explain that he had lost every memory of their relationship? And most importantly, what would Claire explain to him? Why had she stayed hidden for 5 years? Why had she chosen this moment to send Emily to him? Noah climbed the stairs slowly and stopped outside Emily's bedroom. He opened the door quietly and saw her sleeping peacefully, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Tomorrow, perhaps, this little divided family could start reuniting, or they might face revelations that would change everything again. Gently closing the door, Noah made his way to his own room. On his bedside table, he set the photo Anna had found, Claire and Emily smiling in the park. "Remember," it said on the back. Tomorrow, maybe, he would finally remember. The trip to the coastal town had been a false hope. The woman identified as Claire Wilson turned out to be just a tourist who bore a vague resemblance to Emily's mother. Another lead going nowhere. Noah and Emily returned to the Hayes mansion in silence. The disappointment weighed on them both, though Noah tried to mask it for Emily's sake. She, on the other hand, remained surprisingly resilient, insisting that next time we'll definitely find Mom. 3 days after their return, a peaceful Sunday morning was interrupted by the sound of cars arriving at the mansion's entrance. From his office window, Noah saw 3 luxury vehicles pulling up. A black Bentley he recognized instantly, followed by 2 high-end SUVs. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. The last person he wanted to see right now had just arrived, unannounced. Gerald Hayes, his father, stepped out of the Bentley with the same rigid posture as always. At 68, he still carried the intimidating air that had shaped Noah's entire childhood and youth. Behind him was Noah's mother, Eleanor, ever elegant and distant. From the other cars emerged his older brother, Richard, with his wife Vanessa, and his sister Caroline with her husband, the entire Hayes family. This couldn't be good. Noah didn't have time to warn Emily, who was playing in the backyard with Sarah. By the time the doorbell rang, it was too late. "Mr. Hayes," the butler announced at the office door. "Your family is in the living room." "Tell them I'll be right there," Noah replied, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. When he entered the large living room, the whole family was seated as though convened for a council of war. Gerald stood by the fireplace, appearing every bit the general ready for battle. "Noah," his father started, skipping any greeting, "we came as soon as we heard. Why didn't you inform us about this situation?" Noah kept his composure. "Hello to you too, Dad, Mom, Richard, Caroline." Eleanor tried a tense smile. "Dear, we're worried." "Worried about what exactly?" Noah asked, though he knew the answer. "About this nonsense," Gerald replied curtly. "Diane told us about the girl and this ridiculous story." Noah felt a surge of anger. Diane was his personal attorney, but also handled affairs for Hayes Technologies. Apparently, her loyalty was divided. "Emily is not nonsense," Noah said, controlling his voice. "She's my daughter." The DNA test confirmed it. "DNA can be manipulated," Richard interjected, in the condescending tone Noah had always loathed. "Especially when large sums of money are involved." Vanessa, always keen to involve herself in family matters, added, "We all know this type of scam, Noah. Some woman shows up out of nowhere, claiming she has a child by a wealthy man. Oldest trick in the book. The girl didn't show up out of nowhere," Noah retorted. "And Claire isn't asking for anything. She hasn't even shown up to make demands." "Yet," Gerald stressed. "This is obviously the first step of the scam. Send the child in, create an emotional bond, then appear demanding millions not to cause a public scandal." Noah almost laughed at the irony. His father, worried about a public scandal when his own actions 6 years ago could be far worse. "The DNA test is conclusive," Noah insisted. "Emily is my biological daughter." "And what about the mother?" Caroline asked, her tone softer but still laced with distrust. "Who is this Claire Donovan? What do we know about her?" Before Noah could answer, the living room door opened. Emily, hair still damp and wearing a clean dress, apparently Sarah had brought her inside from the backyard, stepped in. She froze at the sight of so many strangers. Silence enveloped the room as 6 pairs of hostile or curious eyes fixed on the small figure at the door. "Emily," Noah called, extending his hand. "Come here." She walked across the room and stood beside him, glancing warily at the adults. "This is Emily," Noah introduced. "My daughter." Gerald studied the child with analytical eyes. "She has the Hayes nose," he conceded reluctantly. "And the eyes," Eleanor added, her expression softening slightly. Emily looked from one adult to another, clearly uncomfortable under their scrutiny. "Who are they?" she whispered to Noah. "They're my parents and siblings," he explained gently. "You're my family." Gerald took a step forward, speaking to Emily in the same tone he used in corporate meetings. "So, you're Claire Donovan's daughter. What did your mother tell you about us?" Emily shrank back against Noah. "Nothing. She only talked about my dad." "And what exactly did she say about your dad?" Gerald pressed. Noah intervened. "That's enough. Emily, why don't you go with Sarah and fix a snack? I need to talk to the family." The girl seemed relieved to leave that tense environment. As soon as the door closed behind her, Noah turned to his relatives. "Let me make something very clear," he said, his voice low and firm. "Emily is my daughter. This is not a scam, not a plot, not nonsense. And I won't allow you to treat her like it is." "Noah," Gerald began in his familiar authoritarian tone, "you're not thinking straight. This woman, Claire, obviously took advantage of you. Took advantage of the past you helped erase," Noah interrupted. "That accident, the amnesia. Interesting how no one thought it important to mention I lost over a year of memories." Eleanor shifted uncomfortably. Richard and Caroline exchanged glances. "We did what was best for you," Gerald replied, unflinching. "For you were on a self-destructive path, involving yourself with unsuitable people, jeopardizing the future we built for you." "Unsuitable people," Noah repeated bitterly. "Like Claire." "Especially like her," Gerald confirmed. "A coffee shop waitress, no prospects, no connections, trying to latch onto the Hayes family. We did what was necessary." The casual, remorseless confession struck Noah like a blow. His suspicions were confirmed. His family had deliberately kept Claire away during his recovery. "You had no right," Noah said, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. "We had every right to protect this family's interests," Gerald countered, unmoved. "And that's exactly what we're doing now. This little girl can't just be admitted into the Hayes name without considering the legal, financial, and public image implications." Noah looked at each of them. His authoritarian father, his passive mother, his arrogant brother, his uncertain sister. the family that had always dictated the terms of his life. "I'll say this only once," he declared, his voice steadier than it had ever been when facing his father. "Emily is my daughter and will stay with me. I will keep searching for Claire. None of you will interfere in any way." "Noah," Gerald began, but Noah cut him off. "If you interfere, if you do anything against Emily or Claire, I'll cut all ties with this family. My shares in the company, my position as CEO, my name, take it all, but Emily stays with me." The ultimatum hung in the air like a storm cloud. Gerald Hayes rarely faced resistance, especially from his youngest son, who'd always been the most compliant of the three. "You're not thinking clearly," Gerald tried again. "That girl only arrived a few weeks ago. We've been your family for 38 years. And in all those years, when have you ever acted in my real interest, not the Hayes name's interests?" Noah challenged. "Emily may have arrived recently, but she's more genuine than anyone in this room." Eleanor stood, looking suddenly weary. "Gerald, perhaps we should give Noah some time. It's clear he has feelings for the child." Gerald stared at his son for a long moment, his face a mask of displeasure. Finally, he said, "This isn't over, Noah. Once you get over this sentimentality, we'll talk again about practical measures to handle this situation." "There is no situation to handle," Noah replied. "There's only a reality you need to accept." The Hayes family left with the same efficiency they'd arrived. Once the last car disappeared, Noah felt his shoulders relax, as if a physical weight had been lifted. He found Emily in the kitchen, eating a sandwich Sarah had made. She looked at him with those attentive eyes, as if sensing the lingering tension. "They didn't like me," she said plainly, not as a question but a statement. Noah sat beside her. "They don't like much that's beyond their control," he answered honestly. "But it doesn't matter." "Why not?" "Because I like you," Noah said, surprised at how easily the words came. "And nobody can change that." Emily smiled, offering him half her sandwich, a simple gesture that meant more to Noah than any approval Gerald Hayes had ever given. In that moment, he knew he'd made the right decision. For the first time, he'd chosen his own path, and there was no going back. The phone rang at 3:17 a.m. Noah, a light sleeper these days, answered before the second ring. "Hayes," he said, instantly alert. "We found her." Marcus Brent's voice needed no introduction. "Claire Donovan, we're absolutely sure this time." Noah sat up in bed, his heart pounding. "Where?" "At a guest house called Safe Harbor on the outskirts of Millhaven, about an hour's drive from here. Our local contact positively ID'd her from the photos." "How long has she been there?" "At least 3 days. Seems she's alone, keeping a low profile. Rented the room for a week, paid in cash." Noah was already getting dressed, throwing on the first clothes he found. "I'm heading there right now." "Sir, I advise caution." "It might be better to wait till dawn. She could vanish again at any moment." Noah cut him off. "I'm not taking that risk. Get the car ready. Wake Emily. We leave in 20 minutes." As he dressed in a rush, Noah felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. After almost 2 months of searching, they might finally find Claire. What would he say to her? How would it feel to see, in person, the face he only knew from photos and fragmented dreams? Sarah was already in Emily's room when Noah arrived. The girl, still drowsy, rubbed her eyes as the housekeeper helped her put on a coat over her pajamas. "Dad," Emily mumbled, confused. "Why is it dark?" Noah knelt down to her eye level. "Emily, we found your mom." The effect was instantaneous. Emily's eyes flew open, all traces of sleep gone. "Mom, where?" "In a town not too far from here. We're going to see her right now." Emily leaped from the bed, suddenly brimming with energy. "Let's go." "Let's go now." In less than half an hour, they were in the car. Noah, Emily, and 2 security guards in an unmarked SUV. Marcus followed in another vehicle, a few minutes ahead, to ensure the situation was safe. The drive was quiet in places. Noah, focused on the road and his tumultuous thoughts, occasionally glanced in the rearview mirror to see Emily staring into the darkness, clutching her teddy bear. "What's Millhaven like?" the girl finally asked. "A small seaside town," Noah said. "I've never been, but they say it's quiet." "Mom likes the ocean," Emily remarked. "She's always happier when we're near the beach." Another detail about Claire that Noah tucked away. Every piece of information seemed precious now, like puzzle fragments he desperately wanted to fit together. An hour later, the sky began to lighten as they entered Millhaven. It was a tranquil place with modest houses and businesses. Marcus waited at a gas station near the main road. "I confirmed in person. She's still there," he said. "Room 8, at the end of the first-floor hallway. The owner said she usually leaves around 7 to grab breakfast at a nearby diner." Noah checked his watch. 5:42 a.m. "We're going straight to the guest house." Safe Harbor was a simple establishment with faded paint and a small, poorly maintained garden. It looked like the kind of place people on the move or with limited funds would stay. The parking lot had only 3 cars, all old. "Wait here," Noah instructed one of the guards, who stayed in the vehicle. "Marcus, you and Ryan stay alert but discreet. I don't want to scare her." Emily clung to his hand tightly as they approached the reception door. An older woman, still in a robe and looking sleepy, answered. "We need to see Claire Donovan," Noah said bluntly. "It's urgent." The woman frowned. "At this hour?" "She's asleep, like any decent person should be." "Please," Emily piped up, her voice small and anxious. "She's my mom." The woman's expression softened at the sight of the girl. She studied Emily's face for a moment, then looked at Noah with dawning comprehension. "Room 8, she finally relented. "End of the hallway on the left." The walk to the room felt endless. Emily squeezed Noah's hand harder with each step. When they stopped at the door marked with an 8, Noah felt a strange buzzing in his ears, like the air pressure had changed. "Should we knock?" Emily whispered. Noah nodded, unable to speak. He raised his hand and tapped lightly 3 times. Silence. He knocked again, a bit louder. The sound of footsteps on the other side made Emily hold her breath. Then a voice Noah didn't consciously recognize, but which sent an immediate ripple of goosebumps across his skin. "Who is it?" Cautious, tense, Emily answered before Noah could. "Mom, it's me." A moment of absolute silence followed. Then the sound of a security chain being undone and a key turning. The door opened just a crack. An eye appeared in the narrow gap, followed by an audible gasp. The door shut briefly before being reopened fully a second later. Claire Donovan stood before them. Her brown hair was shorter than in the photos, and dark circles marred her pale face. She wore a simple t-shirt and jeans and looking thinner than before. But her eyes, the same eyes Noah had seen in the pictures, were wide. Brimming with tears, she struggled to hold back. "Emily," she whispered, as though afraid the girl might be a mirage. "Mom!" Emily dropped Noah's hand and threw herself into Claire's arms. Claire clutched her daughter tightly, closing her eyes as tears finally flowed. Relief radiated from her face, like someone breathing again after nearly drowning. Then, still holding Emily, she lifted her eyes to meet Noah's. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. The moment their gazes locked, something burst in Noah's mind. Not a complete memory, but an intense flash so strong it nearly made him stagger. Laughter. Spilled coffee on his pants. Hastily offered apologies. A napkin offered in peace. "Don't worry, I hated those pants anyway." Those same eyes, bright with humor and embarrassment. "Noah," Claire said, her voice pulling him back to the present. His name on her lips sounded oddly familiar, like a distant echo of something he'd heard 1,000 times before. "Claire," he answered, feeling the strangeness of addressing someone he both knew and didn't know. Emily, still in her mother's arms, looked from one to the other expectantly. Claire, realizing they were still in the hallway, stepped back. "Come in," she said, her tone cautious. The room was small and impersonal. A single bed, a tiny table, an old wardrobe. A backpack sat open in the corner, and some papers were scattered on the table, the only real sign of occupation. Claire had turned anonymity into an art form. "Are you okay, Mom?" Emily asked, studying her mother's face with concern. "I am now," Claire replied, hugging her again. Then, reluctantly, she turned to Noah. "How did you find me?" "I've had a team searching for you since the day Emily showed up," he said. "Why did you run? Why send Emily to me without explaining?" Claire hesitated, glancing meaningfully at her daughter. Noah understood. "Emily, why don't you go with Marcus to the diner and get us some coffee? I bet they have pancakes at this hour." The girl looked uncertainly between her parents. "But I just found Mom." "I'll be here when you get back, I promise," Claire assured her, stroking her hair. "I need to talk to your dad for a moment." After Emily left with the security guard, a tense silence filled the room. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, looking suddenly exhausted. "You don't remember me, do you?" she finally asked. Noah saw no point in lying. "No, not completely. I had an accident 6 years ago. I lost some memories." "Some memories?" Claire repeated with a humorless laugh. "That's what your father told me when I tried to visit you in the hospital. Noah lost some memories, but he's moving on. It's better for everyone if you don't complicate his recovery." Another flash struck Noah. The hospital. A pounding headache. His father on the phone in the corridor. No, only family members. "Doctor, understand this is for his own good. Some complications are best left in the past." "Were we close?" Noah asked, knowing how absurdly inadequate the question was. Claire looked at him for a long moment. "We were engaged, Noah. We'd been living together for almost a year when you had the accident." The revelation hit Noah like a punch. Engaged. Not just a fling. Not just a casual relationship. They were committed. The weight of it made his heart pound. Why would my family... Why would they keep me away?" Claire finished for him. "Because I was a coffee shop waitress when we met. Because I had no fancy background or connections. Because, according to your father, I was ruining your future by distracting you from the path they'd planned." More flashes came to Noah, a heated argument with his father. "She's a gold digger. You don't know her." Doors slamming, driving angrily in the rain. The car skidding. "The night of the accident," he murmured. "It was after a fight with my father's about you." Claire nodded slowly. "You left the Hayes mansion in a rage. You were coming back to our apartment when you lost control of the car in the storm. The pieces began to fall into place. And after, Claire let out a bitter laugh. "After, when I went to the hospital, I was told only family could see you. When I insisted, security was called. I tried every day for 2 weeks. In the 3rd week, your father finally agreed to see me." Claire paused, the pain evident in her face at the memory. "He said you'd lost part of your memory, including all of our relationship. That the doctors advised avoiding emotional confusion during your recovery. That it was better for you to start fresh without complications." "And you believed him?" Noah asked, unable to hide his disbelief. "No, I didn't believe him," Claire shot back. "I tried 1,000 ways to reach you. Letters, phone calls. I even showed up at your company once. Security guards had my picture. Your family created a perfect wall around you." The fragments of memory Noah had been collecting now formed a dark puzzle. His father, his family. They had deliberately separated him from the woman he loved, exploiting his amnesia to rewrite his life as they saw fit. "Then you found out you were pregnant," he concluded, the weight of it hitting him like a ton of bricks. Claire nodded. 2 weeks after I gave up trying to see you, at first I thought about trying again. Surely not even Gerald Hayes could deny a man the right to know about his child. But then I was visited by a Hayes family lawyer. They offered me a large sum to move on elsewhere. When I refused, the threat started subtle at first, then more direct. I lost my job. My apartment mysteriously caught fire. I got the message. Noah felt sick. His family had gone that far to keep Claire and his child away. "So you ran." "I ran to protect our daughter," Claire corrected him. "I moved constantly, changing cities, jobs. Always looking over my shoulder, always afraid they'd find us. For 6 years," Noah murmured, finally grasping the magnitude of it. "You raised our daughter alone, on the run, for 6 years." "And I would have continued if they hadn't found us again," Claire said, rubbing her tired face. "2 months ago, I noticed we were being followed. I recognized one of the men Gerald had sent years ago. I knew it was only a matter of time before they caught up to us, so I made the hardest decision of my life. Sending Emily to me." Claire nodded, tears silently running down her cheeks. "You were the only one who could protect her if something happened to me. I knew that if she made it to you, not even your father would dare hurt her. She carries the Hayes name." Noah felt a toxic mix of emotions, anger at what his family had done, guilt for not being there for Claire and Emily, grief for all the lost time, but most of all, an overwhelming understanding of how many lives had been ruined by Gerald Hayes' manipulation and control. "I'm so sorry," he finally said, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry for everything you've been through, for not being there, for not remembering." Claire looked at him, her expression complex, hurt, exhaustion, but also something softer, perhaps understanding. "It wasn't your fault, Noah. You didn't choose to forget. You didn't choose the accident. They exploited the situation, and you were as much a victim as I was." Noah took a hesitant step closer, then stopped, unsure. How did one comfort someone who had meant everything to him, yet he couldn't fully remember? Just then, another flash of memory, clearer than the others. Claire in his arms, both lying on a worn-out couch, soft jazz playing in the background. She laughed against his neck. "I never thought I'd fall in love with a guy in a suit. I never thought I'd happily trade my suit for ripped jeans. Peace, contentment, love. I'm starting to remember," he said quietly. "Not everything, but fragments, moments, feelings." Claire nodded, wiping her tears. "Emily looks just like you when she smiles," she said, her tone shifting. "Every time I looked at her, I saw you. It was my comfort and my pain at the same time." The sound of small, excited footsteps in the hallway announced Emily's return. The door opened, and she bounded in with a paper bag. "I got pancakes for everyone," she declared triumphantly. "And coffee for the grown-ups." Claire smiled at her daughter, a real smile that brightened her tired face. Then she turned to Noah, a silent question in her eyes. "Emily," Noah said, bending to meet the girl's gaze, "you and your mama coming home with me, to our home. If she wants to." Emily looked hopefully at Claire, who seemed cautious but didn't dismiss the idea outright. "We need to talk more," Claire finally said. "There's a lot to figure out, a lot to consider." But for the first time in 6 years, there was also hope. Our family, divided by manipulation and amnesia, now had a chance to reconnect, even if the road ahead was still uncertain and the challenges great. Noah realized he might never fully recover all his memories. But as he watched Emily dole out pancakes to him and Claire, he understood that maybe he didn't need every piece of the past. Maybe they could create new memories together. 3 weeks after finding Claire, Noah woke one morning with absolute certainty. The sessions with Dr. Chen had finally produced results. His memories were nearly fully restored. Not just random flashes, but entire sequences of his life with Claire. He remembered the engagement ring, a simple diamond in white gold that he gave her under the stars. He remembered the apartment they shared, the plans they made, the night of the accident following a fight with his father. The puzzle of his mind was finally complete. It was time to confront his family. "I need to see the whole family today. Urgent." "My place, 2 p.m, he texted his father. The response was swift. "Impossible today. Board meeting." "I cancelled the board meeting 10 minutes ago. I've already spoken to all the members. Today, 2 p.m. Over breakfast, Noah watched Claire and Emily discussing the decorations for the girls' bedroom. There was a precious normalcy in that moment that made his heart tighten. This was what he could have had for the last 6 years. "My family's coming this afternoon," he announced. "It's time to settle everything." Claire looked at him, tense. "What exactly do you plan to settle?" "I've regained almost all my memories. I know what they did, and I'm not going to let them threaten our family anymore." "Our family?" Claire repeated with a hint of bitterness. "Yes. Whatever happens between us, we are a family, and I'm going to make sure no one interferes again." At exactly 2 o'clock, the luxurious cars parked in front of the house. Gerald and Eleanor Hayes led the group, followed by Richard, Caroline, and their spouses. Noah received them in the formal living room, Claire quietly at his side. "Well," Gerald began without preamble, "it seems the situation has escalated." His cold gaze slid to Claire, who met it evenly. "Have a seat," Noah said. "What I have to say won't take long, but I want everyone to hear it." Noah remained standing, feeling the last missing fragment of memory click into place. The day of the accident, when he had intended to announce his engagement to the family. "I've recovered my memories," he announced. "All of them. I remember how we met, how we fell in love, how we decided to be together despite your opposition." Gerald barely blinked. "Romantic fantasies don't change facts, Noah. You had a serious accident." "And you used my amnesia to rewrite my life," Noah interrupted, "to erase Claire from it." Richard cleared his throat awkwardly. "Noah, we did what was best." "Best?" Noah almost laughed. "Threatening a pregnant woman, burning down her apartment." Eleanor turned pale, looking at her husband. "Gerald, you said you only persuaded the girl." Gerald kept his composure. "Everything was done to protect you and the company. That in waitress and was steering you off your path." "It wasn't just a whim," Claire interjected, her voice firm. "We were engaged, planning to get married. When I realized I was pregnant, all I wanted was for Noah to know he was going to be a father." Caroline looked horrified at her father. "You offered her money to vanish, even though she was carrying your grandchild?" "A claim of pregnancy is the oldest trick in the book," Richard defended. "Emily has my eyes, my nose, even my laugh," Noah retorted. "You saw the DNA test. She's my daughter, and you stole 6 years of her life from me." Gerald turned to Claire. "What do you want then? Money? Recognition?" Claire stepped forward. "I want you to stay away from my daughter. I want you to understand that you failed despite all your power. You couldn't keep Noah from his true family." Noah placed himself beside Claire. "I'm here to set terms, not negotiate. Claire and Emily will stay with me. If there's any interference, any attempt to tear our family apart again, the consequences will be permanent." "You're threatening your own father." Gerald narrowed his eyes. "I'm promising to protect what matters. If that means giving up the presidency at Hayes Technologies, renouncing the Hayes name, so be it." Eleanor stood abruptly. "Noah, you're talking about abandoning your inheritance and your position all for my family," Noah finished. "Something you should understand, but turned into nothing more than strategic alliances." The shock was evident on everyone's faces. Never in his life had Noah challenged them so directly. "I have obligations to this family and to the company," Gerald tried one last time. "I won't let you destroy everything I've built." "That's your choice, Dad. Accept reality or lose your heir." Caroline, always the most sensitive, stood with tears in her eyes. "Noah, we're still your family. You can't just cut us off." "You cut Claire and Emily out of my life without a second thought," Noah replied gently. "But I'm not telling you to pick sides. I'm setting boundaries. Those who respect them are welcome." Gerald Hayes rose, his face flushed with restrained fury. "This discussion is not over, Noah." "I've learned who truly cares about me," Noah responded, glancing at Claire. The Hayes family left in a tense procession. Caroline lingered at the door, whispering, "I'm so sorry," before following the others. "Would you really do it?" Claire asked once they were alone. Give up everything. I already did the moment I chose to confront them. They won't give up easily, Claire warned. I'm not asking them to. I'm just asking them to respect my choice. Noah hesitated, then touched Claire's cheek. A choice I made once before when I gave you that ring. Claire didn't pull away, but her eyes remained cautious. We're different people now. Yes, but some things haven't changed. What I felt for you, what I still feel, is real. Emily came running in, interrupting the moment. They left already? She asked, glancing around. Noah knelt to her level. Yeah, they're gone. They were mad, Emily asked perceptively. A little, Noah admitted. But that doesn't matter now. Are we staying here all together? Noah looked at Claire, letting her decide. Claire hesitated only a moment. Yes, Emily, we're staying. For now. It was a start. 3 months later, the beachfront house was nearly complete. In a moment of impulse, Noah had bought the property and surprised Claire with his plans. It's not the Hayes mansion, he'd explained. It's something new, ours. That sunny afternoon, Noah was supervising the final construction touches when Claire approached. Emily was off in the distance, building a sandcastle with Caroline. Surprisingly, the first Hayes family member to reach out for reconciliation. She really does look like you when she smiles, Claire said. And she has your determination, Noah replied. That castle's been rebuilt 3 times because it wasn't right. Claire laughed, and the sound made Noah's heart race. Every one of her smiles still felt like a victory. I found something, she said, extending her closed hand. While sorting the last of the boxes, Noah held out his palm, and Claire dropped a small metallic object into it. The ring, the same one he'd chosen for her 6 years ago. I kept it all these years, Claire explained. Even while we were running, even when I was furious. Noah stared at the ring, now completely familiar. He remembered every detail, choosing it, rehearsing his proposal, Claire's face when he'd knelt down. Does this mean, Noah began. That I'm ready to try again, Claire answered. Not exactly like before, we're different people now. Maybe better people. Noah looked at the ring, then at Claire, then at Emily in the distance. 3 lives that had almost remained apart. In a gesture echoing a scene from 6 years ago, Noah knelt in the sand. Claire Donovan, will you build a life with me? Again? Claire, tears in her eyes but smiling firmly, held out her left hand. Yes, a new life, with no secrets, no lost memories. Emily noticed what was happening and dashed toward her parents, throwing herself into their arms. The 3 of them tumbled onto the sand, laughing together, forming a perfect little circle. As the sun began to set over the ocean, casting golden light on the house that would be their new beginning, Noah Hayes finally felt complete. No longer the Hayes heir, no longer the man with fragmented memories, just Noah, father to Emily, partner to Claire, at last in possession of his own memories, his own destiny, and that was more than enough.